Welcome to the Audiobook Tactical Mindset, Clear Thinking for a Sharper Life. This book isn't just about motivation. It's about strategy. It's about how to think clearly when life gets messy, how to act with purpose when others panic, and how to train your mind to become your most powerful weapon, not your worst enemy. Before we move forward, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Whether you're a student, a parent, an entrepreneur, or someone just trying to level up, this book is for you. You don't need to wear a uniform to think tactically. You don't need to be in a crisis to need clarity. Life throws challenges at all of us, and those who win, the ones who rise, lead, and keep moving forward, aren't always the strongest. They're the sharpest. The ones who think before they act with purpose, and don't let the world dictate their direction. In the pages ahead, you'll learn how to stop reacting and start responding with purpose. Use discipline as a tool, not a punishment. Train your mind like a muscle, sharp, calm, and strong. Stay grounded in chaos and adapt under pressure. Make better decisions, faster, and with more confidence. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about revealing the best of who you already are, and sharpening that version of you through principles, mindset shifts, and strategic thinking. You're going to hear real talk. No fluff. No complicated jargon. Just practical guidance, explained in a way you can use immediately. Because life doesn't slow down. And neither should you. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Think like a strategist. Live like a warrior. Let me tell you something straight. The world doesn't care how good your intentions are. It responds to your actions. But before actions come thoughts. And if those thoughts aren't strategic, you're playing life on someone else's terms. So let's flip that. Starting today, you're going to think like a strategist and live like a warrior. Thinking like a strategist isn't about overanalyzing or being cold and calculating. It's about clarity. It's about knowing what you want, where you are, and what stands between the two. A strategist doesn't just react to life. A strategist plans 3 moves ahead. They look at a situation and ask, what's the angle here? What's the outcome I want? And what's the smartest path to get it? Here's why that matters. Most people go through life just responding. They wake up, check their phone, get caught in traffic, react to emails, stress over things that don't really move the needle. Then the day ends, and they repeat it again tomorrow. That's survival. But a warrior doesn't live in survival mode. A warrior wakes up with intention, with awareness. They don't start the day aimlessly. They begin it with a mission. And listen, this isn't about being perfect. You're not a robot. You're not meant to have every answer all the time. But you are meant to have a compass. That's what strategic thinking is. A compass. It keeps you from getting lost in the noise. And life is full of noise, distractions, opinions, setbacks, shiny temptations. A strategist isn't immune to the chaos. They just don't get swallowed by it. Let me give you a real talk example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. Now, instinct says curse, speed up, get even. That's emotional. That's reactive. That's not strategy. Strategic thinking says, is it worth my energy? Will this get me closer to where I want to be today? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. So you let it go. Not because you're weak, but because your energy is reserved for bigger battles. That's a tactical mindset. It's about value. Every thought, every move, every breath, filtered through a question. Is this useful to my purpose? And if you don't know what your purpose is, that's your first mission. You can't be strategic without a destination. So here's your task. Get clear on what matters to you. Not what sounds good to others. Not what looks good on a vision board. What actually sets your soul on fire. What drives you. What you'd fight for, even when nobody's watching. Because once you know that, really know it, everything else becomes a strategy session. Relationships. Finances. Fitness. Emotions. Each one becomes a game you know how to play. And every move becomes deliberate. So let me ask you this, are you planning your life? Or are you just reacting to it? Because a warrior with a strategy That's someone who doesn't just survive this world. They shape it. Let me tell you what most people don't realize. Strategy is not just for CEOs, athletes, or military generals. It's for you. Every day you make decisions: what to say, how to react, when to speak up, when to stay quiet. That's strategy. And the sooner you treat your daily life like it matters, like it's a chessboard, not a coin toss, the sooner your results will shift. You don't need a fancy degree or a perfect plan to be strategic. What you need is to slow down your impulses and ask smarter questions. That's where most people mess up. They act on emotion, on impulse, and then they wonder why they feel out of control. If you want to feel in control of your life, you have to start by controlling your thinking. Not suppressing your feelings, controlling your focus. There's a big difference. Let me break it down in plain terms. Feelings are valid, but they're not always accurate. Just because you feel angry doesn't mean you have to act angry. Just because you feel doubtful doesn't mean you should stop. A warrior knows how to sit with emotion without being ruled by it. That's strategic. That's power. And here's another truth most people miss: strategy starts the night before. You don't get up and wing it and expect to win. Champions review their battles before they fight them. You should go to bed thinking about how you want to show up tomorrow. What matters most? What you will do, and what you won't tolerate from yourself. Because if you wake up and immediately grab your phone, check messages, scroll through someone else's life, you've already lost the first battle of the day. A strategist wakes up with purpose. They protect their morning. They set intentions. They understand that if they don't run their mind, something else will. And let's not kid ourselves, you're in a fight. Not a physical one, but a mental one. You're battling distraction, doubt, fear, laziness, comparison, procrastination. If you don't have a plan, those things will win. But if you do, they don't stand a chance. You become dangerous, focused, calm under pressure. That's how warriors move. And don't think for a second that this mindset is about being hard or cold. Quite the opposite. Real warriors are patient, kind, generous, but not naive. They don't give their energy to everything. They choose their moments. They stay grounded. They listen more than they speak. And when they do speak, people listen, because their words carry weight, not just volume. Now let's talk about setbacks, because life will test you. Plans won't go as expected. People will disappoint you. You'll make mistakes. That's all part of the game. A strategist doesn't crumble when things go sideways. They adapt. They revise. They move with intelligence, not ego. And most importantly, they never confuse a moment of failure with a lack of identity. Failing doesn't make you a failure. It makes you seasoned. You see, every warrior has scars. Every strategist has losses. But the key is they don't stay down. They study the loss. They extract the lesson. And then they get back in the game, wiser, sharper, and more lethal than before. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being precise. And when your mindset becomes tactical, when you train yourself to think ahead, move deliberately, and act with clarity, you begin to walk through life differently. More grounded. Less reactive. More powerful. Not because life got easier, but because you got better. And that's the heart of this entire philosophy. You don't wait for life to get easier. You get stronger, smarter, more focused. And with that mindset, nothing can truly stop you. Obstacles become training grounds. Criticism becomes fuel. And doubt becomes irrelevant. Because when you move with strategy, when you live like a warrior, you don't need external permission to rise. You become unstoppable on your own terms. Let's break something down that's often misunderstood. Strategy doesn't mean you always have to be 10 steps ahead. It means you're always aware of where your next step lands. That's it. Just the next step. Because clarity isn't about predicting the future. It's about owning the present with enough purpose that the future naturally aligns. That's why we talk about tactical thinking. Tactical doesn't mean overthinking. It means intentional thinking. And intention is powerful. You don't drift into excellence. You steer into it. Every move you make either reinforces your progress or steals from it. And the craziest part? Most of those moves are small: what you say, who you spend time with, how you spend your first hour of the day. Minor things, right? But they stack. They build momentum or they create drag. There is no neutral in growth. You're either pushing forward or you're sliding back. So here's a mindset shift. Start treating your time like your most precious currency. Because it is. Money can be earned back. Opportunities can come again. But time? Once it's spent, it's gone. And a warrior understands this deeply. That's why they don't entertain drama. They don't linger in confusion. They don't waste energy trying to convince people who don't want to grow. They're too focused. Too aligned. Too clear on what matters. Now that doesn't mean they're cold or heartless. No, quite the opposite. They care deeply. But they care with direction. With discernment. They care in a way that aligns with their values, not their fears. There's a difference between being generous and being drained. Between being kind and being compliant. A tactical mind knows the line. You've got to remember, every yes you give to someone or something is a no to something else. And if you're not strategic about your yes, you'll end up saying no to your own goals, your own peace, your own growth. Let's talk about presence for a moment. Because this is where strategy becomes real. A tactical mindset lives in the present, not in regret or anxiety. Why? Because regret lives in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. Strategy lives in now. The only place where action is possible. Where decisions happen. Where influence is made. And you know what keeps people from being present? Distraction. Emotional noise. Trying to control things outside their reach. That's why a strategist simplifies. They clear the clutter. They reduce friction. They protect their focus like a guard at the gate. Because focus is fuel. You can't go far without it. You see, people don't lose because they lack talent. They lose because they're not focused. They're scattered. Distracted. Pulled in 100 directions and making no meaningful progress in any of them. But when you sharpen your focus, even a little, everything begins to change. The noise gets quieter. The decisions get easier. And your confidence? That rises. Not from arrogance. From alignment. Alignment with your values. Your goals. Your standards. A strategist isn't perfect, but they don't play games with their standards. They know where their line is. What they'll tolerate. What they won't. What kind of energy they let into their life. And if someone or something crosses that line, they don't argue about it. They act on it. Let me give you something practical. Build yourself a decision filter. A simple one. Something like, does this help me grow? Does this match my standards? Would the strongest version of me say yes to this? Ask it often. Before every commitment. Every conversation. Every distraction. Because if you don't have a filter, the world will decide for you. And the world is loud. It will offer you comfort, convenience, shortcuts, all wrapped in convincing language. But a warrior doesn't take shortcuts. They don't avoid the hard stuff. They go straight through it. Because they understand something most don't. The hard path isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's the fire that sharpens the blade. And you? You're the blade. You've got potential, yes. But potential isn't power until it's practiced. And practice doesn't happen on accident. It happens through habits, through repetition, through choosing better, again and again, especially when it's inconvenient. That's what separates the tactical mind from the average one. It's not intelligence. It's consistency. Not luck. Intention. Not a secret formula. Just the daily decision to show up and think with clarity before moving with force. So take this seriously. You're not just a passenger in life. You're the pilot. And your thoughts? Those are the controls. You steer your story, or your story steers you. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather hold the pen. Let's get something clear. Strategy isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing yourself. You've got to understand your strengths, yes, but more importantly, your triggers. Your blind spots. The moments you tend to slip. That's where your power lives. Because once you know where you're weak, you can build around it. You can prepare. That's what strategists do. They don't pretend to be invincible. They set up systems that keep them solid, even when they wobble. And trust me, you will wobble. Everyone does. The difference is, warriors don't let it knock them down for long. They reset. They reframe. They recover fast. And that's not luck. That's preparation. That's awareness. That's strategy in motion. Let's talk about emotional triggers. We all have them, the words, looks, or situations that throw us off. Make us impulsive. Reactive. That's not weakness. That's being human. But a tactical mindset takes responsibility for those triggers. It studies them, understands them, learns how to pause when they flare up. That pause, that moment between stimulus and response, that's where your power is. It's in that pause where you decide, do I respond with emotion or with intelligence? Do I fight to be right, or do I fight to be effective? A strategist always chooses the long-term win over the short-term ego boost. That's the level of thinking we're aiming for. Now, let's shift gears and talk about energy. Energy is your currency. You spend it every day, on people, problems, decisions, distractions. The problem isn't that you don't have enough energy. The problem is often that you're spending it in the wrong places. A tactical mind keeps track of that. They budget their energy like they budget their time. They understand that not every problem is worth solving. Not every comment is worth responding to. Not every invitation is worth accepting. And this takes discipline. Real, daily, gritty discipline. Not the Instagram kind, the kind where you say no when it's hard. Where you go to bed earlier because you respect tomorrow. Where you hold your tongue, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. That kind of discipline turns you into someone others respect, not because you demand it, but because you earn it. People follow warriors not because they shout, but because they show up with steady confidence. Quiet power. That doesn't mean being passive. It means being precise. A warrior doesn't throw energy in every direction hoping something sticks. They move with control, with focus. They choose their words. They pick their battles. And because they don't waste their strength on everything, they have strength left when it really counts. This is something you build, by the way. It's not something you're born with. So if right now you feel like your mind's messy, your focus is scattered, or your discipline is shaky, good. That means you're human. That means there's room to sharpen the blade. Start by choosing one part of your life where you can apply this mindset today. Just one. Maybe it's how you approach your mornings, or how you speak to your partner, or how you handle interruptions at work. Choose one and ask, how would a strategist approach this? How would a warrior carry this moment? And then act accordingly. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be on purpose. Because that's how it begins. One decision. One moment. One shift in awareness. And then you stack them. Like bricks. And before you know it, you've built something unshakable. Not flashy. Not loud. But solid. That's what a tactical mindset creates. A life that holds under pressure. A self that you can trust. A future that's shaped by decisions, not dictated by chance. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be focused. You don't need all the answers. Just a strategy. You don't need permission. Just action. And if you've made it this far, if you're still here listening, that tells me something powerful. You're ready. So let's keep building. Let's bring this even closer to home. Most people think strategy is only about the big stuff, major life goals, long-term plans, defining moments. But the truth? Strategy lives in the tiny details. It's not just how you plan your life, it's how you pour your morning coffee, how you answer your phone, how you respond when someone disrespects your boundaries. It's not about control. It's about awareness. Because when you're aware, you're in charge. Not of everything, but of yourself. And that's where all your power is rooted. Think about it. When you respond instead of react, when you pause instead of explode, when you observe instead of assume, you're holding the reins. That's not a small thing. That's the kind of discipline that builds strong minds. And strong minds? They build strong lives. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you really paid attention to your thinking? Not just what you think, but how you think. What questions you ask yourself when things go wrong. What assumptions you make when things feel off. A strategist doesn't just consume thoughts. They filter them. They challenge them. They don't believe everything their mind offers, because they understand the mind can be reactive, emotional, inconsistent. So they check it. They steer it. You ever wonder why some people seem calm even when everything around them is falling apart? It's not because they're special. It's because they've trained themselves to think tactically. They don't internalize every storm. They don't take everything personally. They don't try to win every argument or control every outcome. Instead, they ask, what matters most right now? What can I control in this moment? What's the most useful response I can choose? And then they choose it. That's not passive. That's not avoidance. That's elite-level self-control. And it's something you can build, too. Start small. When someone's rude, choose patience. When you feel lazy, choose movement. When doubt creeps in, choose curiosity over criticism. Ask, why am I thinking this way? Is this useful? Is it true? The moment you start questioning your thoughts instead of following them blindly, you take back control. And the more you do this, the more you live with that kind of awareness, the more confident you become. Because you start to trust yourself. Not because you're always right, but because you know you'll handle whatever comes with intention instead of panic. That's the mark of a warrior. They don't always know what's coming next, but they know who they are. They know what they stand for. And that identity, that clarity, carries them through the unknown. You see, most people think confidence comes from success. But real confidence? It comes from preparation. From knowing you've done the work, thought through the angles, stayed aligned with your values. It's not loud. It doesn't need applause. It just moves quietly through chaos, untouched by noise, because it knows exactly where it's going. That's who you're becoming. So let this be your reminder. You don't need to control everything. You just need to control yourself. Your reactions. Your thoughts. Your direction. When you do that, life doesn't feel random anymore. It starts to feel like a mission. A mission you're equipped to lead. And don't worry if you're not there yet. This is a process. A mindset you build, moment by moment, challenge by challenge. Some days will be messy. Some decisions won't be perfect. But that's fine. That's real. Just keep coming back to the compass, strategy over impulse, purpose over ego, presence over panic. And every time you do, you sharpen the mind. You train the focus. You build the strength. This isn't motivation. This is your foundation. Let's keep reinforcing it. Chapter 2: Control the chaos before it controls you. Let's get one thing straight right out the gate. Chaos is unavoidable. Life will throw curveballs. People will disappoint you. Deadlines will pile up. Your emotions will spike. Plans will fall through. That's not a glitch in the system. That is the system. So the goal isn't to eliminate chaos. It's to manage it before it manages you. Let's put it simply. If you don't control the chaos will control you. It'll steal your focus, hijack your emotions, eat up your time, and leave you burnt out, spinning in circles, wondering why nothing's working. But here's the truth most people never realize. Chaos isn't the problem. Your relationship to chaos is. You can either treat it like an emergency, or like an opportunity. Like a threat or like a test. Warriors don't panic when things get messy. They don't lose their heads when the unexpected shows up. They breathe. They assess. They adapt. Because they've trained for this. And you can too. So how do you control the chaos? You start with clarity. clarity on what matters, what doesn't, and what your priorities are right now. Chaos feels overwhelming when everything feels urgent. But not everything is urgent. That's the lie chaos tells you. Fix this now. Solve this now. Answer this now. And the minute you believe it, you've already lost your ground. Here's a tactic. Write down your top 3 priorities each morning. Just 3. Not 10. Not everything. 3 things that, if done, would move your day forward with purpose. These are your anchors. They keep you steady when things around you get noisy. And when chaos shows up, which it will, you don't stop everything to deal with it. You ask, does this need my attention now, or is this just noise trying to look important? That question alone can save your sanity. Another tool, build what I call a mental reset ritual. Something small that brings you back to center when your mind starts racing. It could be a breath, a phrase, a posture, anything that signals to your brain. We're not panicking. We're processing. Because panic never solves anything. Panic makes you impulsive. It makes you loud when you should be listening. It makes you act before you think. That's when mistakes happen. That's when regrets are born. But a tactical mind slows down to speed up. It doesn't react to the chaos. It regulates it. You can walk into a stressful room and lower the temperature just by the way you carry yourself. That's control. That's leadership. And it starts inside. Let's not forget, controlling chaos doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means facing the mess with structure, with tools, with presence. It means asking better questions so you can make better decisions. Ask, what's the actual issue here? What part of this can I control? What's the next best move, not the perfect one? Because control isn't about fixing everything. It's about stabilizing yourself enough to move through the storm. Think about it like this: chaos is a fire. If you panic, you pour gasoline on it. But if you stay calm, you bring the hose. You've seen people like this before. The ones who stay cool when everyone else is spiraling. It's not because they don't feel stress. It's because they don't feed it. They step back. They think through it. And then they respond, not with fear, but with strategy. You're capable of becoming that person. But it takes practice. Intentional thinking. Daily discipline. Choosing to be the calm in the storm instead of another gust of wind. Because here's the bottom line. The world is loud, messy, fast. But you can be grounded, focused, steady. Not because you have all the answers, but because you know how to lead yourself when things fall apart. And that leadership? That's how you take your power back from the chaos. Let's go deeper, because it's not just about how you think in chaos. It's about how you prepare for it before it ever hits. Preparation is your best armor. You don't wait for the storm to start learning how to build a shelter. You do it now, while the skies are clear. And that starts with routines, not boring ones, not rigid ones, but purposeful ones. Routines give your day structure. They give your mind predictability. And predictability calms the nervous system. When your world feels chaotic, your routine becomes your rhythm. And I don't mean you need some elite morning plan or a 10-step miracle ritual. Start simple. A consistent wake-up time. A 10-minute quiet check-in with yourself before you check your phone. A commitment to moving your body every day. These aren't just habits, they're anchors. They train your brain to expect control. And when the unexpected hits, you respond from a steady foundation. Let me tell you something real. People think calm is soft. But calm is a form of strength. It's emotional leadership. When you stay calm in chaos, you tell the people around you, it's okay. We can figure this out. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature. You don't just reflect it. But calm doesn't mean silence. It means confidence. And that confidence comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what tools you have in your mental arsenal. Chaos may shake the room, but it doesn't have to shake your identity. Here's another tactic, name the chaos. Literally. Say it out loud. Okay, this is frustration. This is uncertainty. This is overload. Why? Because naming it helps contain it. It turns a wave into a shape. And once it has a shape, you can work with it. People make chaos worse when they internalize it. When they let it fester in silence, it starts to feel bigger than it actually is. But when you shine a light on it, when you verbalize it, journal it, speak it out, it shrinks. Because now, it's something you are observing, not something you are drowning in. Now here's a big one: simplify your environment. Physical chaos fuels mental chaos. Cluttered space, cluttered mind. Your surroundings talk to your brain constantly. If your space is disorganized, loud, and chaotic, your thoughts will echo that. But if your environment is clear, functional, intentional, your brain gets the message: we are in control here. This doesn't mean minimalism for the sake of aesthetics. It means removing distractions that compete with your energy. Keep what adds clarity. Cut what adds noise. And then, boundaries. Because a lot of chaos in your life isn't created by you. It's invited by you. Every time you say yes to something you don't mean, every time you let someone violate your space, interrupt your priorities, drag their drama into your lane, you've opened the door to chaos. A tactical mind sets clear boundaries. Not walls. Boundaries. A wall says, stay out. A boundary says, here's how we work best. And when people know your boundaries, they respect your time. And more importantly, you start respecting it too. All of this adds up. Tiny things. Small shifts. But they build resilience. They give you back control, not of the world, but of your world. That's the key. You can't control the economy, the weather, other people's attitudes. But you can control your responses, your preparation, your mindset, your pace. And when you master that, the chaos outside can be loud, but it never gets inside. That's not just mindset. That's armor. You're not avoiding the storm. You're learning how to walk through it without losing yourself. And once you learn that, you stop fearing chaos. You start facing it. You start mastering it. And that mastery? That's your edge. Let's bring it even closer to real life. Chaos doesn't always look like disaster. Sometimes it wears a disguise. It shows up as constant notifications, a jam-packed calendar, a never-ending to-do list, an inbox full of demands, people asking for just 5 minutes of your time over and over. Little things, right? But here's the trick: chaos doesn't need to be dramatic to be dangerous. It just needs to be consistent. A slow leak will sink a ship just as surely as a storm. It just takes longer. So ask yourself, what are the leaks in your life? What are the daily distractions, the constant small fires, the mental clutter that keeps you from moving with focus? And here's the important part: don't just notice them. Audit them. Track them. Write them down. Get honest. Where does your time go? Where does your energy get stolen? What's eating your focus? Most people never ask these questions, and that's why they stay stuck in survival mode. But not you. You're here to lead. And leaders don't guess. They evaluate. They track patterns. They look at their systems. Because if your life feels chaotic, it's not just a mindset issue. It's a systems issue. Here's how you start fixing it. Look at your inputs. What are you consuming? News? Endless scrolling? Toxic conversations? Unfiltered content? You can't build a calm, strategic mind if you keep feeding it chaos. Your inputs shape your mental environment. Garbage in, garbage out. But clean inputs, strong content, clear intentions, honest conversations, they create clarity. They give your mind the space it needs to think strategically. You can't hear yourself think when you're drowning in noise. And while we're on it, choose your circle wisely. Some people bring calm. Some bring confusion. Some people leave you feeling energized. Some leave you feeling drained. That's not an accident. That's frequency. That's vibration. You have to guard your atmosphere like it's sacred. Because it is. The people around you either pull you deeper into chaos or help pull you out of it. So be bold. Have boundaries. Say no when you need to. Not because you're selfish, but because you're strategic. And that includes with yourself. You ever notice how often we overcomplicate things? We set 5 goals at once. Try to multitask everything. Chase every idea. Burn out and call it ambition. But a strategist knows better. They simplify. Here's a simple rule: if everything's a priority, nothing is. Decide what really matters right now. One goal. One task. One focus. Go all in on that. When it's done, move to the next. This isn't slower. It's smarter. Because divided energy leads to diluted results. Focus is a weapon. Don't waste it. And while we're talking about control, here's one last truth for now. You won't feel in control of your life until you feel in control of your mindset. And mindset is built moment by moment, thought by thought, choice by choice. Chaos might always knock on your door. But whether you open that door, let it in, and hand it your schedule, your peace, and your purpose, that's on you. So today, start making that shift. Less reacting. More reflecting. Less panicking. More preparing. Less overwhelm. More intention. That's what it means to control the chaos. You lead it, or it leads you. And from this point forward, you choose to lead. Chapter 3. Every move should have a meaning. Let me say this as clearly as possible. Motion without meaning is just noise. You can be busy all day and still go nowhere. You can check off 10 tasks and still feel empty. You can run full speed and still be lost, if the direction is wrong. That's why every move should have a meaning. You don't win in life by doing more. You win by doing what matters. Now, this is where most people get stuck. They confuse movement with progress. Just because you're active doesn't mean you're effective. Just because your calendar is full doesn't mean your life is full. Busy isn't the same thing as valuable. Let that sink in. A tactical mindset doesn't chase activity. It chases clarity. It asks, why am I doing this? What is this leading to? What's the return on this effort? Because effort isn't free. Time isn't free. Attention isn't free. You pay for everything with energy. So you better know what you're getting in return. You don't have to eliminate everything from your life, just the things that lead nowhere. This is what separates the warriors from the wanderers. A warrior moves with direction, with design. Their life is not a guessing game, it's a mission. That means setting goals with intention. Having a reason for your actions. Not to impress others. Not to tick a box. But because you've done the mental work to define your purpose. Let me give you a simple framework. Before every commitment, ask yourself 3 things. Does this align with my values? Does this bring me closer to a meaningful outcome? Am I doing this out of purpose, or out of pressure? That 3rd question? That's the one that breaks chains. Too many people say yes because they're scared of saying no. Scared of looking selfish. Scared of being judged. So they fill their days with things they don't believe in, just to keep up appearances. And then they wonder why they're exhausted, anxious, and unfulfilled. A warrior doesn't move to please. They move to progress. And their power isn't in how loud they are, it's in how aligned they are. Every workout, every conversation, every book, every rest day, it all has a reason. That's not obsessive. That's intentional. That's the kind of mindset that builds a legacy. Because here's something to think about. Your life is your message. The way you live, the decisions you make, the energy you bring, they all say something. So what are you saying? Are you living on purpose or by accident? Are your moves loud but empty, or quiet but meaningful? Only you know the answer. But I'll tell you this, when you start living with meaning behind your movement, everything changes. Your time feels more valuable. Your conversations feel deeper. Your choices feel cleaner. You stop needing validation, because your direction becomes your validation. You don't need applause when you know your moves matter. So today, before you say yes to anything, ask, is this just motion, or is this meaningful? Because when you stack enough meaningful moves, you don't just build a better life, you build a life that matters. And that's the mission. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest traps out there: default behavior. You know what I'm talking about. The routines you fall into without thinking. The way you check your phone without realizing. The way you say yes without pausing. The way you fill your schedule because you're uncomfortable with stillness. Default mode is what happens when you stop making conscious moves. It's autopilot. It's unexamined repetition. And here's the kicker: it doesn't feel wrong. It feels normal. That's why it's dangerous. A tactical mind refuses to live on default. They pause. They question. They choose. Even in the smallest of things. Because they understand that every decision, no matter how small, is a vote for the kind of life they're building. Here's a practical tool. Ask yourself at random times throughout the day, why am I doing this? Say it out loud. Seriously. Ask yourself like a coach checking in. Why am I eating this right now? Why am I scrolling? Why am I saying yes to this meeting? Not to guilt yourself, but to become aware. Because awareness turns default into design. You begin to notice how much time you spend on things that don't match your priorities. You notice where your habits pull you off course. And once you see it, you can change it. You can take that same energy, that same time, and reinvest it into something that builds you instead of draining you. That's what meaning is. It's alignment between what you do and who you're trying to become. If your actions don't match your identity, you'll always feel off. You'll feel like you're chasing something but never catching it. That feeling isn't failure. It's misalignment. And the cure isn't harder work, it's smarter moves. Now here's something else most people don't do: they don't reflect. They just move. Then wonder why the results don't change. But reflection is a strategic weapon. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what moves did I make today that actually mattered? What did I spend energy on that didn't give me anything back? Where did I act out of meaning, and where did I just move out of habit? This reflection isn't about shame. It's about course correction. That's how professionals operate. That's how champions train. They don't just work, they review. They measure. They adapt. And you can do the same. You should do the same. Because here's the truth: we all get the same 24 hours. But how you move in those hours determines your impact. And it's not about squeezing in more tasks. It's about eliminating the meaningless ones. Think of your energy like a battery. Every time you make a move, talk to someone, open a tab, start a project, you use a little bit of charge. If you burn it on things that don't matter, you'll have nothing left when it counts. But when every move has meaning, even the small ones, your energy becomes a force multiplier. Your life begins to feel lighter, sharper, more on purpose. And here's the bonus: when people see that in you, that calm, focused, intentional presence, they respond. You become someone others trust, someone they follow. Not because you talk big, but because your actions speak louder. So don't waste your moves. Don't hand out your attention like it's infinite. It's not. Choose wisely. Move wisely. Live like every step you take is building something, because it is. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be intentional. And when you make your next move, whether it's a conversation, a project, a decision, or a simple breath, make sure it's yours. Make sure it means something. Because from now on, you don't just move. You mean it. Now let's get honest. This kind of intentional living is not always easy. It's a lot easier to just drift. To stay in motion. To say, I'm grinding. Or, I'm busy. And use that as a badge. But being busy doesn't mean you're building. And just because something takes effort doesn't mean it's meaningful. You have to develop the courage to slow down. To stop the motion long enough to ask, is this worth it? Or is this just habit? Because here's the truth: we get addicted to motion. It makes us feel productive. Like we're doing something. But if you're running in circles, you're not progressing. You're just exhausting yourself. That's why reflection is so important. Why stillness is necessary. Why silence, even a few minutes a day, is not a luxury. It's survival. Think of it like this: meaning doesn't scream, it whispers. And if your life is too loud, you won't hear it. This is where you build real strength, not just in the hustle, but in the pause, the check-in, the inner alignment. Because a powerful move doesn't come from pressure, it comes from clarity. Let's take this deeper. There's a mental shift you need to make to live with meaning, and it's this: stop thinking in terms of tasks and start thinking in terms of impact. Instead of asking, "What do I need to do today?" ask, "What will make the biggest difference today?" It's a simple shift, but it will change your entire day. One powerful, meaningful action can outpace 10 pointless ones. And this doesn't just apply to your career or your goals. It applies to everything. In relationships, don't just talk. Speak to connect. Listen to understand. Be present. That has meaning. In your health, don't just work out to punish yourself. Move to strengthen, to energize, to build longevity. That has meaning. In your rest, don't just zone out. Recharge. Reflect. Refocus. That has meaning too. Meaning is everywhere, but only if you look for it. Only if you choose it. So here's the move: design your life like a strategist. Look at your time like a battlefield. Every minute is a square of terrain. Every decision is a placement of troops. Are you spreading yourself too thin? Are you guarding your most important ground? A warrior doesn't waste effort on meaningless battles. They fight where the outcome matters. They act where the leverage is highest. You have to do the same. And here's what happens when you do: life starts to make sense. Not because it gets easier, but because you're not working against yourself anymore. Your moves are aligned. Your energy flows. Your confidence grows. That's the power of meaning. It creates momentum. Real momentum. The kind that doesn't burn you out, it builds you up. So let this sink in: you don't need to do more. You need to do more of what matters. Let other people chase noise. Let them stay busy. You move different. You move on purpose. Because every step you take now, it counts. And that's how you build a life worth waking up to. Chapter 4: Discipline is a weapon, not a burden. Let's clear up a huge misunderstanding. Discipline is not punishment. It's not restriction. It's not suffering. Discipline is a weapon, a tool, a form of power. And when you use it right, it gives you freedom, not limits. People who avoid discipline usually end up controlled by something else: their impulses, their distractions, their emotions, their cravings. You don't escape discipline by ignoring it. You just hand it off to chaos. Think of it like this: discipline is your internal compass. It points you in the direction you said you wanted to go, even when your feelings try to drag you off course. Without it, your goals are just wishes. With it, your goals become orders you actually follow. And that's the shift. Discipline doesn't ask, "Do I feel like it?" It says, "I decided already, now I follow through." This isn't about being cold or robotic. It's about alignment. It's about protecting your future self. Because the hardest part of growth isn't knowing what to do, it's doing it when you don't feel like it. That's why discipline is rare. That's why it's powerful. And that's why it's respected. Look around at the people you admire, not the ones with flashy lives, but the ones with inner strength. The ones who keep showing up. Who stay grounded. Who make promises and keep them. That's discipline in action. Quiet. Consistent. Solid. And you don't need to be born with it. You build it. Day by day. Choice by choice. Let's get practical. Want more discipline? Start here. 1. Shrink the battlefield. Don't try to fix everything at once. Pick one thing, one small, meaningful behavior, and win there. Wake up 15 minutes earlier. Skip the scroll before bed. Go for a walk when your brain says, "Stay." One disciplined act, repeated daily, is worth more than 1,000 unkept promises. 2. Tie your discipline to identity. Don't say, "I have to work out." Say, I'm the kind of person who takes care of my body. When discipline is who you are, not just what you do, it sticks. 3. Reward the effort, not just the result. Show up first. Results come later. When you start valuing the reps, not just the scoreboard, discipline becomes a practice, not a pressure. Here's something nobody tells you: disciplined people don't always feel motivated. They feel committed. And commitment doesn't wait for inspiration. It creates it. That's why you have to stop waiting to feel ready. You won't. Discipline is what you lean on when motivation disappears. It's what drives you when no one's watching. It's what gets you through when life feels heavy. And yes, it gets uncomfortable. But so does regret. So does chaos. So does being stuck. You get to choose your discomfort. One leads to growth. The other leads to resentment. You decide. And remember, this isn't about perfection. You'll fall off. You'll miss days. You'll slip. That's normal. The disciplined mindset doesn't expect flawlessness, it expects recovery. Fast. Humble. Relentless. Because every time you get back up, you build something stronger than streaks. You build trust. With yourself. And self-trust? That's the deepest kind of confidence there is. So the next time your mind says, "Skip it, you've earned a break," or, "Just this once," pause. Ask, "Is this leading me or leaving me?" That's the voice of discipline. And that voice? That's the one that builds everything you're after. Let's keep sharpening it. Let's go even deeper. Discipline isn't just about doing what's hard. It's about doing what's right, especially when nobody's watching. It's about character. Because anyone can do the right thing when it's convenient. But a disciplined mind does the right thing when it's inconvenient. When it's cold. When it's boring. When it's hard. When no one will applaud. That's where real growth happens, in the invisible reps. And here's the truth: your future self is watching. The person you're becoming, they're shaped by today's choices. Discipline is a way of investing in that future. Not with luck. Not with hope. With deliberate action. Let's break it down into real-life scenarios. When you choose to study instead of scroll, that's discipline. When you walk away from gossip because it lowers your standards, that's discipline. When you go to bed instead of binging another episode, that's discipline. Small things. But stacked daily? That's how giants are built. It's easy to look at disciplined people and think they're wired differently. But more often than not, they've simply built systems that protect their progress. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on design. And you can do the same. Set your environment up for success. Lay your clothes out the night before. Put your phone across the room. Block distractions. Automate where you can. Discipline becomes easier when friction is lower. Don't just rely on strength, rely on strategy. And let's talk about emotional discipline, because that's where most people lose. Discipline isn't just doing what you said you'd do. It's also about not doing what you want to do when it's out of alignment. It's choosing silence over snapping back. It's staying calm when you want to react. It's holding your ground without needing to prove yourself. That kind of control isn't weakness, it's mastery. And it's what separates people who move the world from people who are moved by it. There's a kind of peace that comes with being disciplined. A confidence that says, "No matter what happens today, I know how to handle myself." That's inner power. You can't fake that. You can't buy that. You build it. And the best part? You don't have to feel it to act it. That's where most people go wrong. They wait until they feel disciplined to be disciplined. But action leads, feelings follow. Show up first. Then the pride comes. Then the confidence grows. Then the belief solidifies. But it all starts with a simple, sometimes uncomfortable, often uncelebrated decision to do what's best, not what's easiest. And the more you practice that, the less effort it takes. Because discipline isn't just something you do. It becomes who you are. There's something powerful that happens when you finally make peace with discipline. You stop seeing it as something to dread. You stop fighting it like it's some kind of punishment. You start realizing it's a form of self-respect. When you live with discipline, you're telling yourself, I'm worth the effort. My future is worth protecting. My peace is worth earning. And that changes everything. Because now, you're not forcing discipline, you're choosing it. Not to impress anyone. Not to live up to some standard someone else set. But because you've tasted the difference. You've felt the clarity, the strength, the confidence that only comes when you're keeping promises to yourself. And let's not ignore the other side, because yes, discipline costs you something. It costs you comfort. It costs you convenience. It costs you excuses. But guess what? Indiscipline costs you more. It costs you self-respect. It costs you time. It costs you opportunities. It costs you peace of mind. Every time you avoid the discomfort of discipline, you inherit the chaos that comes with it. Miss the workout? That stress builds. Skip the work? The pressure piles. Procrastinate the hard conversation? The tension grows. But the moment you choose discipline, even in something small, you regain control. And that feeling of control? That's momentum. That's dignity. That's fuel. Here's something to remember. You don't rise by accident. You rise by intention. And every moment you choose discipline, you raise your standard, not just for today, but for the version of you that's still being built. So stop asking, do I feel like it? Start asking, is this in alignment with the life I'm building? Because that's the question that separates short-term comfort from long-term power. You don't need more motivation. You need more movement. More decision. More discipline, not as a cage, but as a sword. Sharpen it. Carry it. Wield it with purpose. Because with that kind of discipline, the world won't shape you, you'll shape the world. Chapter 5. The power of observation changes the game. Most people walk through life half blind. They see what's obvious, what's loud, what's right in front of them. But they miss everything else. The signals, the patterns, the silent truths. Why? Because they're too busy reacting to look deeper. That's where observation comes in. Observation isn't just about looking, it's about seeing, noticing, reading between the lines, paying attention to what's unsaid, to what's unguarded, to what's quietly shaping everything around you. The tactical mind knows observation changes the game. Because the better you observe, the better you understand. The better you understand, the better you can respond. And in a world full of reactivity, response is power. Let me put it this way, everyone is giving off information. Constantly. Through body language, word choices, timing, energy. But only those who are still enough to observe it use it. Here's where it applies. In business, it's noticing hesitation in a handshake. In relationships, it's sensing the change in tone before the words shift. In leadership, it's seeing a silent struggle before it becomes a visible breakdown. In yourself, it's catching a drifting habit before it becomes a destructive one. That's what observation gives you, an edge. And it's quiet. It's not flashy, but it's deadly effective. Because when you learn to see more, you begin to need less. Less guesswork. Less panic. Less overreaction. You gain clarity, foresight, advantage. But here's the thing, observation takes effort. It requires you to slow down, to listen more than you speak, to remove yourself from the spotlight and study the room, the moment, the energy. That's why so few people master it. Their ego wants attention. Their pace wants rush. Their mind wants conclusions before the data even finishes arriving. But a tactician waits. Watches. Learns. They ask, what's really happening here? What's not being said? What's the motivation behind that move, not just the move itself? And they don't always react. Because observation isn't about jumping to conclusions. It's about gathering intelligence. And intelligence takes time. The best part? The more you practice this, the better you get. You begin to pick up on patterns, in others and in yourself. You begin to notice triggers, habits, micro decisions, You start to see the story beneath the story. That's how you avoid being manipulated. That's how you lead more effectively. That's how you adjust in real time, because you're not operating on assumption. You're operating on truth. Observation gives you that. Not just eyes on the world, eyes on yourself. And that, more than anything, is the beginning of real change. Here's the twist most people never realize: observation isn't passive. It's not about being a bystander. It's about being strategically alert. Because when you observe the world, really observe it, you stop being surprised by it. You start to see things as they are, not as you wish they were. You stop falling into traps because you notice them being set. You stop misreading people because you're listening deeper than just their words. Let's talk about people, because mastering observation changes how you deal with them forever. Want to be more persuasive? Observe first. Listen more. Speak less. Understand their values, fears, body language, pace. Watch how they respond when they're challenged. Pay attention to what lights them up or shuts them down. Why? Because influence isn't about talking louder, it's about understanding deeper. And that only comes from careful, intentional observation. This applies in conflict too. In an argument, don't just wait for your turn to talk. Watch the emotion under the words. Notice their breathing, their pacing, where they break eye contact, where their tone changes. That's how you get insight, not just data. And insight gives you control. Now let's flip the lens. Observation isn't just external. The most powerful use of this tool, turning it inward. Because the world is full of people who are experts on everything, except themselves. But not you. You use observation as a mirror. You study your own thoughts. You question your own behaviors. You catch yourself when you're slipping into old habits. You don't just feel emotions, you observe them. You don't just act impulsively, you pause long enough to ask, what's really going on inside me right now? That's emotional awareness. And it's rare. But it's powerful. Because if you can name it, you can manage it. If you can see it, you can shift it. And this doesn't make you cold, it makes you centered. This doesn't make you robotic, it makes you responsive. In a noisy world, your ability to pause, assess, and act from awareness will always put you one step ahead. And here's the bonus: observation creates detachment. Not disconnection, but healthy emotional distance. It allows you to experience a moment without being consumed by it. That's what lets you stay calm in chaos. That's what gives you clarity when others lose their head. Because you're not stuck in the moment. You're observing it, studying it, choosing your move, not being pushed into one. And that ability? That's rare air. That's elite-level self-leadership. So here's your challenge: build that observation muscle daily. In every interaction, every setback, every environment, ask, what am I missing that others aren't noticing? What can I learn from this before I respond? How do I step back before I step in? Because once you master observation, you stop just playing the game, you start seeing the whole board. And that changes everything. Let's pull this together with a truth most people overlook: observation is the first step to mastery. Before you can master a skill, a conversation, a moment, a habit, you have to see it clearly. You have to understand the pattern before you can break it. You have to notice the gaps before you can fix them. And that applies to everything. You want to be a better communicator? Observe how you talk, how others respond, where tension rises, where connection fades. You want to be a better leader? Observe your team. What motivates them? What frustrates them? What energizes them? What silences them? You want to be mentally sharper? Observe your routines, your distractions, your excuses, your wins, your thoughts when no one's looking. Because here's what separates the tactical from the average. The average person reacts to what happens. The tactical mind watches why it's happening. That one distinction creates better decisions, faster pivots, smarter moves. And don't get this twisted, observation is not about judgment. It's about information. You're not observing to shame yourself or criticize others. You're observing to understand, so you can elevate. That's the real game changer. Because when you understand something, you stop fearing it. When you understand yourself, you stop doubting so much. When you understand the world better, you stop blaming it and start navigating it. That's real power. And if there's one thing you take from this chapter, let it be this: observation slows the world down. It gives you space. It gives you leverage. It gives you choice. And choice, that's everything. Because the more options you see, the more control you have. People who don't observe well feel stuck. They feel like life is happening to them. But once you sharpen your vision, once you start noticing the details, the shifts, the undercurrents, life starts happening through you. You become the quiet one in the room who sees everything. The calm one in the storm who knows exactly when to act. The grounded one in the crowd who's not shaken by noise, because they already saw it coming. So develop this skill. Own it. Live it. And when the world gets loud, remember, you don't have to react to everything. You just have to see clearly. Because the better you observe, the better you play. And when you play with clarity, you play to win. Chapter 6. Don't react, respond. Let's start with this simple truth: reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. And the difference between the two? That's the difference between chaos and control, between damage and direction. You've felt it before. Someone says something disrespectful, you snap back. Traffic builds up, and suddenly you're yelling in your car. Plans fall through, and you spiral into frustration, blame, overthinking. That's reaction. It's fast. It's loud. It's emotional. It feels good in the moment, but it rarely helps. In fact, most of the time, it makes things worse. Now let's look at response. Response is different. Response is calm. It pauses. It analyzes. It acts, not to explode, but to resolve. And that's what this chapter is about: stepping into situations with composure, not chaos. Because here's the deal: you can't always control what life throws at you. But you can control how you respond to it. And that control? That's what builds leaders. That's what builds respect. That's what builds peace. You don't need to be a monk to do this. You just need one thing: a pause. That's it. A breath. A beat. A second between trigger and reaction. In that pause, you ask yourself, what's really happening here? What's the outcome I want? Is this worth my energy? Will this response help or hurt? And in that moment, you shift from reflex to response. From noise to strategy. Most people don't take that beat. They jump straight into reaction mode. And that's where damage happens, to relationships, opportunities, and your own mental clarity. Here's an example: you get criticized. The reactive person attacks back, defends, deflects. But the tactical person, they observe. They ask, is there truth in this? Even 1%? If yes, they use it. If not, they let it go, without letting it own them. That's power. Quiet, real, unshakable power. And don't get it twisted, responding doesn't mean being passive. It means being precise. You can respond with strength. You can respond with boundaries. You can respond with action. But you're not doing it out of panic, you're doing it on purpose. This applies everywhere. In business. In arguments. In parenting. In personal growth. When you choose response over reaction, you take back time. You avoid messes. You earn respect. And you create space for better decisions. It's not about being perfect. It's about being prepared. Because the next time life tests you, and it will, you'll have a choice: react like everyone else, or respond like someone who's mastered themselves. And that choice? That's where your strength lives. Let's go deeper, because this skill, this ability to respond instead of react, isn't just a nice to have. It's survival. In conflict, it protects your relationships. In pressure, it protects your peace. In chaos, it protects your clarity. And it starts with one fundamental principle: you are not your feelings. That may sound simple, but it's powerful. Because feelings are visitors, they show up, uninvited, loud, persuasive. But just because a feeling is present doesn't mean it gets to take over. Anger can visit, but it doesn't get to lead. Fear can whisper, but it doesn't get to drive. Insecurity can knock, but you don't have to let it in. When you build the ability to pause and observe your emotions without obeying them, you become dangerous, in the best way. Because now you're acting from choice, not from chaos. And this doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. No, you own them. You feel them fully. You just don't let them run the show. You become the leader of your emotional life, not the follower. Let's make this practical. You're in a heated conversation. The old version of you wants to win. Prove a point. Talk over them. Raise your voice. But the tactical version of you pauses, not to retreat, but to assess. What's the goal here? To be right? Or to be effective? Is this a power struggle or a chance to lead? That shift alone can save years of regret. Because here's what reacting costs you: regret, over-explanations, unnecessary conflict, burned bridges, and most of all, self-trust. Every time you react without thinking, a part of you feels disappointed. You know you could have handled it better. And that disappointment builds until it feels like shame. But when you respond with intention, the opposite happens. You feel proud, grounded, aligned. Even if it's hard, you feel strong, because you stayed in control. And control isn't about dominance, it's about discipline. It's about giving your future self less to clean up, fewer apologies to make, fewer relationships to repair. So here's the move: when you feel triggered, pause. Take a breath. Feel the heat, but don't move yet. Buy yourself just 5 seconds. And in that space, ask, what would my highest self do here? What will this look like 5 hours from now? What response builds, not breaks? And then act. Not with ego, with intention. That's real leadership. That's maturity. That's tactical living. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you won't even think about it. You'll just notice your fuse is longer. Your clarity is faster. Your decisions are cleaner. Not because life got easier, but because you got better at leading yourself through it. That's the power of response. It doesn't just change moments, it changes who you become. Let's land this with a simple truth: your response is your power. You can't always control what people say to you. You can't control what curveball life throws at you. But you can control how you meet it. And how you meet it, that decides everything. Reacting is easy. It's immediate. It's instinctual. But easy isn't always effective. Responding is earned. It's trained. It's chosen. And choice, real, conscious choice, is where growth lives. That's what separates people who rise from people who spiral. It's not the size of the storm, it's how you sail through it. It's not the heat of the moment, it's your ability to stay grounded in the middle of it. People who react constantly? They're always exhausted. Emotionally, mentally, relationally. Why? Because they're pulled in every direction by every trigger. But people who respond, they conserve energy. They don't jump at every provocation. They don't over-explain, overreact, over-apologize. They move with purpose. They answer with power. They speak from stillness. And here's the best part: this isn't just about handling the hard moments. This mindset makes the good moments better too. Because when you respond instead of react, you become more present. You notice more. You enjoy more. You listen deeper. You live clearer. You stop rushing through life on emotional autopilot. You start living with emotional precision. And that doesn't just change your stress level, it changes your relationships, your confidence, your influence. It shows up in how people trust you, in how much peace you carry, in how little drama surrounds you. And none of that is luck. It's the result of hundreds of small moments where you chose to pause and lead. So here's how you make it real, starting now. Every time you feel yourself getting pulled, by frustration, by fear, by urgency, stop. Take one breath. Just one. and ask yourself, is this a reaction or is this a response? That one question, asked consistently, will shift the way you move through your entire life. Because you're not here to be controlled by your moments. You're here to control your movement. Not to react like everyone else, but to respond like someone who knows their power. Chapter 7. Train your mind like you train your body. Let's get something clear. Your mind is a muscle. And just like any other muscle, if you don't train it, it gets weak, sluggish, soft. But if you train it with consistency, pressure, and proper recovery, it gets strong, sharp, resilient. Most people get that concept when it comes to their body. They know they can't just hit the gym once and expect to be fit for life. They understand it takes reps, sets, struggle, sweat, rest, and consistency. But when it comes to the mind, they expect miracles. They expect to be confident after one motivational video. They expect to stay calm after reading one book. They expect clarity after one good day. But the mind doesn't work like that. It works like a muscle. You train it daily, intentionally, repeatedly. Mental strength isn't born. It's built. That means you have to do the work, even when it's boring. Especially when it's boring. Because that's where real strength gets built, not in hype, but in habits. So how do you train your mind? Just like you train your body, with resistance. When you push against resistance, you grow. Mentally, resistance looks like discomfort. Like doing what you don't want to do. Like waking up early when your bed feels good. Like speaking truth when silence feels safer. Like choosing focus when distraction is easier. Every time you make the hard choice, the strong choice, you do a rep, and every rep builds mental muscle. And here's what most people miss. Training your mind doesn't always feel heroic. It often feels subtle, simple, unseen. But the impact? It's massive. Because a strong mind makes strong moves. A trained mind doesn't crack under pressure. It doesn't panic when things don't go as planned. It doesn't crumble at criticism or freeze in the face of fear. It adapts. It holds the line. It recalibrates and keeps moving. Just like an athlete in the zone, locked in, focused, unshaken, a trained mind performs with precision when it matters most. That's what you're building. And just like with physical training, you need three things: consistency, intensity, recovery. Consistency means daily reps, not once a month, but every single day. Even if it's 5 minutes of clarity, 1 moment of focus, 1 smart decision. Stack them. Intensity means effort. Stretching your comfort zone. Challenging yourself. Choosing what grows you over what soothes you. Recovery means stepping back to reset. Mental strength isn't just grind, it's balance. It's knowing when to press and when to pause. When to push forward, and when to sit still and breathe. The gym teaches this. So does life. But only if you're paying attention. Only if you treat your mindset like it matters. Because here's the truth: if you don't train your mind, life will train it for you. And life doesn't always train you gently. But if you step up, take responsibility, and build that internal muscle day by day, you won't just survive challenges, you'll be shaped by them. Into someone solid, focused, grounded, powerful. The concept of mental training is not metaphorical, it is mechanical. Just as muscles require stress and repetition to grow, the mind demands intentional challenge and focused consistency to strengthen. In both domains, physical and mental, growth is a response to structured pressure. When individuals neglect their bodies, the decline is visible. When they neglect their minds, the consequences are equally real, though less immediately noticeable. Indecision, reactivity, chronic distraction, a lack of resilience. These are the byproducts of an untrained mind. Mental fitness, like physical fitness, is a discipline, not a disposition. Consider the similarities. The body builds strength through resistance, endurance through repetition, and flexibility through intentional stretching. The mind mirrors this process. It becomes more focused through boundaries, more resilient through adversity, more composed through deliberate recovery. Yet, while most people accept that physical progress takes time, many expect mental clarity to appear instantly. They seek motivation before discipline, results before routine, peace without process. This expectation is not only flawed, it's self-defeating. The truth is, training your mind requires the same level of structure, attention, and respect that any effective physical regimen would demand. Here's how the process unfolds. 1. Intentional exposure to discomfort. You do not grow by avoiding challenge, you grow by managing it. The goal is not to invite chaos, but to meet it with composure. Small, daily exposures to discomfort, waking earlier, finishing what you start, choosing focus over distraction, function as psychological reps. They condition the mind for pressure. 2. Mental repetitions through routine. Focus is not found, it is forged. Through daily habits, the mind learns direction. Repetition doesn't dull progress, it deepens it. Whether it's journaling each morning, reviewing your goals before bed, or practicing silence during moments of stress, these rituals build internal order. They remind the mind who's in charge. 3. Recovery and reflection. Just as muscles cannot grow without rest, the mind cannot sustain clarity without pause. Recovery is not weakness, it is part of the plan. Meditation, nature, intentional solitude, quality sleep, these are not luxuries for the mentally disciplined. They are essentials. Without them, mental training collapses into burnout. What you are ultimately developing is internal infrastructure, a solid foundation that allows you to respond rather than react, to adapt rather than panic, and to remain firm while others become unstable. And make no mistake, this discipline compounds. Every time you resist the urge to lash out, every time you sit with discomfort instead of fleeing it, every time you choose alignment over impulse, you build. Quietly. Inwardly. Irrevocably. The reward? You don't merely become mentally stronger. You become mentally sovereign. That's the difference between surviving the moment and shaping it. Between emotional fatigue and emotional fluency. Between someone who is moved by life and someone who moves through life with intention. Mental strength, like all forms of strength, is not gifted, it is trained. And with that training, you earn something even greater than resilience. You earn mastery over your most powerful asset, your mind. One of the greatest misconceptions surrounding mental strength is the belief that it is inherently tied to personality or temperament. People say, "He's just naturally calm," or "She was born focused." But such statements do not reflect truth, they reflect a lack of understanding of mental conditioning. Calm is cultivated. Focus is trained. Emotional discipline is forged through deliberate exposure to tension and guided recovery. Just as a body left untrained will default to weakness, a mind left untrained will default to disorder. And disorder is costly. It's costly in decision-making, in relationships, in leadership, and in personal fulfillment. The world is saturated with stimulation. Every moment, your attention is being hunted, by headlines, by apps, by notifications, by noise. Without a trained mind, your energy becomes fragmented, your time swallowed by distraction, and your confidence drained by inconsistency. But when the mind is trained, it becomes a fortress. Your thoughts become ordered, your reactions measured, and your emotional baseline stabilized. In this state, you gain more than mental clarity, you gain control over the direction of your life. The process of training begins with awareness. Before you can change your mental conditioning, you must first notice its current state. Where do you lose focus? What triggers stress or self-doubt? Where do you consistently break your own standards? These questions are not meant to induce shame. They are diagnostic tools. Honest observation is the first step toward refinement. Following awareness comes intention. Each day must carry with it at least one deliberate moment where you direct your mind instead of letting the world direct it for you. Perhaps that's 5 minutes of journaling. Perhaps it's a 10-minute walk without your phone. Perhaps it's the decision to pause before responding to a challenging message. These practices appear small, but their impact is cumulative. Over time, they recalibrate your baseline. From intention comes endurance. Training is not measured by how strong you feel on your best day. It's measured by how you carry yourself on your worst. The moments when motivation disappears, when circumstances unravel, when nothing goes as planned, those are your training sessions. In those moments, you will either revert to reaction or rise into response. That response, however subtle, is what builds your internal momentum. And finally, refinement requires reflection. At the end of the day, pause. Not for performance review, but for alignment check. Were your actions today in line with your values? Did you lead your mind or follow your impulses? Did you act with clarity or drift with distraction? The goal is not guilt. It is awareness. Without awareness, there can be no adjustment. Without adjustment, there can be no advancement. This process, awareness, intention, endurance, reflection, becomes your mental gym. And as with any training ground, you improve with repetition, not perfection. Some days you will feel sharp. Other days you will feel sluggish. But the disciplined mind continues to show up, not because it always feels strong, but because it has chosen to become strong. With time, mental training evolves from effort to identity. You begin to think like a disciplined person. You begin to move with structure. You begin to trust yourself in moments where others unravel. That trust becomes a foundation. And from that foundation, you build everything else: relationships, decisions, strategy, peace. In a world that rewards noise, a trained mind is silent but unmistakable. It does not seek to prove itself. It simply performs. It does not seek applause. It seeks precision. It does not need permission to lead. It is already leading itself first. And that, above all, is the aim, not to control the world, but to control your response to it. Not to eliminate pressure, but to face it without fracture. Not to be perfect, but to be prepared. Train your mind. Every day. Like you would your body. Because strength, mental or physical, never shows up when it's convenient. It only shows up if it's been trained to. Chapter 8. Anticipate, don't assume. Assumption is one of the most dangerous defaults in human behavior. It is the shortcut our minds take when we feel uncertain, when patience wears thin, or when we believe we've seen this before. But assumption, while efficient, is almost always imprecise. It leads to poor communication, fractured relationships, and avoidable errors. What assumption offers in speed, it steals in accuracy. Anticipation, by contrast, is rooted in observation, pattern recognition, and critical thought. It is deliberate. It is informed. It is humble enough to wait, but sharp enough to prepare. While assumption acts on incomplete information, anticipation seeks more of it. Assumption reacts. Anticipation responds. This distinction is not merely linguistic, it is behavioral. A person who assumes acts quickly but without clarity. A person who anticipates waits briefly, listens deeply, and acts only when the move is justified. The difference in outcome can be significant. To live with a tactical mindset means developing the skill to anticipate outcomes, not out of fear, but out of preparation. You do not forecast chaos, but you account for variables. You learn to ask, what might happen next, and what will I do if it does? This is not paranoia. It is strategic foresight. Foresight is not the ability to predict the future, it is the ability to prepare for it. This preparation might take the form of a backup plan, a contingency response, a reserve of energy, or simply the mental space to adapt. In contrast, assumption removes preparation altogether. It says, I know how this will go, and then often stumbles when it does not. Consider how this plays out in conversation. When you assume what someone will say, you stop listening. When you assume what they meant, you stop asking questions. But when you anticipate, when you listen, observe, and read the context, you become better equipped to respond with insight rather than react with bias. This creates connection, not conflict. It strengthens trust, not tension. This applies equally to planning. Many people make plans based on ideal conditions. They assume everything will go smoothly. No delays. No errors. No detours. But anticipation says, What if this takes longer than expected? What if we hit resistance? What's plan B, and what resources will we need to activate it? This kind of thinking is not pessimistic, it is professional. The most prepared individuals and teams are not those who bet on perfection. They are those who respect complexity, acknowledge uncertainty, and plan accordingly. That planning is a form of discipline. It is a mindset that says, I may not know exactly what's coming, but I'll be ready for a range of possibilities. Developing this skill requires slowing down your thinking process just enough to examine the landscape. It means learning to pause before assuming you understand a situation. It means asking clarifying questions. It means building time and space into your decisions so that when unexpected factors arise, and they will, you are not destabilized. To anticipate well, you must also remain present. Assumption is often a result of rushing. When you move too quickly, you default to what you think you know. But when you remain grounded in the moment, you notice details. You see the expressions on faces. You catch the nuances in tone. You pick up on energy that words may not reveal. These observations sharpen your response. Anticipation is not about being perfect. It is about being prepared enough that imperfections do not destroy your process. It is the practice of building mental flexibility. It teaches you to ask better questions, to hold fewer conclusions, and to move with less ego and more intention. Over time, the benefits compound. You begin to trust yourself more, not because you're always right, but because you've stopped pretending to be. You no longer feel rattled when things shift. You adjust. You pivot. You continue. And that, perhaps, is the greatest outcome of all. The world will never operate on your timeline. It will surprise you. It will interrupt you. It will throw variables into your neatest plans. But if you've trained yourself to anticipate instead of assume, you will not panic, you will proceed. That is the essence of tactical foresight. It does not guarantee ease, but it ensures readiness. It builds a mind that moves with clarity, with calm, and with quiet confidence, no matter what appears around the corner. Chapter 9: Adapt quickly or get left behind. Adaptability is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. In environments where change is constant and uncertainty is guaranteed, those who fail to adjust will find themselves stuck, obsolete, or overwhelmed. The pace of change in modern life, whether personal, professional, or societal, does not reward the most experienced or the most confident. It rewards the most adaptable. Adaptability is not simply about tolerating change, it is about evolving in response to it. It requires flexibility of mindset, speed of decision-making, and emotional steadiness under shifting circumstances. It is the ability to reassess reality as it is, not as you wish it were. And that level of clarity requires humility. To adapt, you must first let go of rigidity, in thinking, in plans, in ego. Rigidity often comes disguised as certainty. People cling to their routines, opinions, and habits because they provide comfort. But comfort is not the same as capability. In fact, when the environment shifts, comfort often becomes a liability. The inability to let go of what once worked is one of the primary reasons people get left behind, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked agility. The adaptive mindset understands that yesterday's strategies may not solve today's problems. What was effective last year may be ineffective now. What felt like a strength in one context can become a weakness in another. Adaptability is the recognition that the landscape is always changing, and so must your approach. This does not mean abandoning structure or commitment. It means building systems that are fluid enough to evolve. It means having goals that are clear, but methods that are flexible. It means being willing to adjust your process without abandoning your principles. Adaptability also means staying curious. Curiosity is the fuel of adaptability. When you are curious, you ask questions instead of making assumptions. You explore possibilities instead of repeating patterns. You remain open to new information rather than anchored to old conclusions. This openness is not weakness, it is wisdom. There is also a psychological component. Many people resist change not because they dislike progress, but because change threatens their identity. If I let go of this habit, who am I? If I try something new and fail, what does that mean about me? These are deeply human questions. But to adapt, you must be willing to evolve not only what you do, but how you see yourself. The most adaptable individuals have learned to detach their identity from their methods. They don't need to be right, they need to be effective. They don't fear failure, they fear stagnation. They don't resist feedback, they seek it. And because of this, they move faster. They grow faster. They recover faster. In practice, adaptability looks like course correction. It looks like stepping back, reevaluating, and making decisions that may not have been part of the original plan. It's not a detour, it's a recalibration. And in a world of constant change, recalibration is a strength, not a compromise. Adaptability also requires emotional management. Change can trigger fear, frustration, or confusion. These reactions are natural, but they must be handled with intention. The tactical mindset does not avoid discomfort, it uses discomfort as information. It notices the resistance, but it does not become paralyzed by it. It asks, what is this feeling telling me, and what is the most useful response to it? In moments of disruption, the ability to pause, assess, and pivot quickly is what keeps momentum alive. Speed matters, not frantic, panicked movement, but decisive, informed action. Those who wait for perfect certainty will always trail behind those who are willing to move forward with partial clarity and refine as they go. Adaptability is not about reacting to every new thing. It is about recognizing when the context demands a shift, and having the courage to make that shift quickly and deliberately. It is about trusting yourself not because you have all the answers, but because you know how to learn, adjust, and improve in real time. This is how progress is made in today's world. Not through rigid plans. Not through stubborn pride. But through clear thinking, fast learning, and consistent, courageous adjustment. To adapt is not to lose your ground. It is to reposition yourself for continued movement forward, no matter how often the path changes. Those who do this are not simply surviving. They are staying ahead. They are shaping the future instead of being dragged by it. And in a world that never stops evolving, that might be the most important skill of all. Chapter 10. Mindset is the mission. At the core of every decision, every action, every transformation, is mindset. It is not a side topic. It is not a motivational buzzword. It is the mission. The operating system behind every external outcome you chase. Health, success, leadership, clarity, peace, all of it flows from how you think, how you interpret, how you respond. Mindset is not one element of your growth. It is the engine of it. Too often, people focus on what to do without understanding how to think. They gather tactics but never shift their core perspective. They change behaviors temporarily, but the internal wiring, their belief systems, self-talk, perception of failure and challenge, remains the same. Without a mindset shift, progress becomes temporary at best and fragile at worst. A tactical mindset does not mean perfection. It means presence. It means that you no longer walk through life asleep. You are aware. You are deliberate. You are structured. You question your defaults. You lead your emotions. You sharpen your responses. You are no longer at the mercy of impulse. You are governed by clarity. That clarity is not something you're born with. It's something you build. It begins with how you speak to yourself. Words shape focus, and focus shapes results. A mind that constantly says, "This is too much," will find proof of that everywhere. A mind that says, "This is a challenge, and I'm built for it," will find the strength to respond. What you tell yourself becomes the script you live out. And the tactical mindset rewrites that script, not with blind optimism, but with intentional language rooted in truth, purpose and strength. It also redefines struggle. In this mindset, setbacks are not personal. They are part of the path. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" You stop running from discomfort and start using it as data. You understand that pressure is part of progress, and resistance is part of refinement. That shift alone will change the way you move through the world. Mindset is also about responsibility. When you own your mindset, you own your life. You stop outsourcing your emotions to other people. You stop blaming your pace on circumstances. You take back authority, not over everything that happens, but over everything you choose in response. That kind of authority builds trust. Not from others, from yourself. And when you trust your own mind, you stop needing constant external reassurance. You begin to operate from internal alignment, not external noise. This is what allows you to stay consistent when motivation fades. This is what keeps you calm when things go wrong. This is what keeps you moving when it would be easier to retreat. Because the mission isn't just to reach goals. The mission is to become someone who thinks, moves, and leads with purpose. The mission is mindset. And here's the truth, no one else can do this for you. You can be inspired by others. Guided. Supported. But no one can install your mindset. You must build it. Test it. Maintain it. Every chapter of this book has offered you a piece of that structure. The discipline. The awareness. The strategy. The response. The anticipation. The control. But it all comes back to this, you must decide. You must decide who you are when it's hard. Who you are when you're tired. Who you are when no one is watching. That decision is what shapes everything else. Because the tools are useless without the operator. You are that operator. And your mind is your most important instrument. Train it. Respect it. Let it. Because in the end, mindset is not just part of the journey. Mindset is the journey. And if you build it strong enough, nothing can stop you, not forever.